Hey, how's it going guys, it's Nate here. And worlds as big as those offered by the Elder Scrolls have a knack for breeding speculation and sparking curiosity. Well, Skyrim is no exception to that rule, as the game leaves us with a plethora of unanswered questions that capture our interests. Thankfully, some members of the community have provided possible explanations and theories to provide some clarity, or sometimes perhaps the opposite, to much of what happens in the Elder Scrolls V. So sit back and relax as we take a look at 5 more crazy theories in Skyrim. Starting off, Juergen Windcaller is a bit of a legendary figure amongst the Nords of Skyrim. Known for founding the Greybeards and being a master of the Thu'um in the First Era, this long-dead man of the voice is regarded as a heroic figure, with nothing but the greatest intentions. However, some players have suggested he may not have been all that pure, so to speak. You see, during the quest, the Horn of Juergen Windcaller, the player is sent by the Greybeards to Windcaller's tomb in Unsteingrav in an attempt to retrieve his mythical horn. Well, when you finally reach Juergen's coffin, you'll notice that the word Windcaller is inscribed on it. Well, you'll only notice if you speak Daedric, because that's the language this is written in. Not Dragon Tongue or English as one would expect, but Daedric. Why and how could an alphabet used mostly by the Daedra and their followers make its way to the very tomb of such a legendary heroic figure? Some have hypothesized that perhaps Juergen had some help from Daedric princes in some capacity during his ride to success. Additionally, we don't know a whole lot about what actually killed Juergen and caused him to lose his life, so it's equally possible that such gods could have had a hand in that as well. The player can meet Juergen Windcaller in Sovngarde as a part of the main quest. This implies that he probably wasn't an evil person, and possibly died in battle, making the latter hypothesis a bit more likely in my opinion. Regardless, whatever led to these words ending up on Juergen's tomb is a mystery that only one person knows the truth behind. Next on our list, the Oblivion Crisis was a pretty significant moment in Tamriel's history, as the Daedric prince Mehrunes Dagon and his onslaught invaded the world intending to conquer it, only to narrowly be stopped thanks to the actions of the player and a dude named Martin in the Elder Scrolls IV. Well, it seems plausible that one very unlikely, yet familiar bunch of characters just might have participated in this great conflict, according to one theory. Inside the Vampire Lord Harkon's room in Castle Volokar, stronghold of the Volokar clan of vampires, hanging proudly over a table is a flag of the Mythic Dawn. The Mythic Dawn, for those of you who didn't play the Elder Scrolls IV, was Mehrunes Dagon's cult of human worshippers, who assisted the Daedric god in orchestrating the Oblivion Crisis, and really just caused a lot of general turmoil for the people in Tamriel. Well, with Lord Harkon and many of his fellow bloodsuckers being thousands of years old, it's more than possible that Harkon himself had a role to play during the Oblivion Crisis. Now, considering vampires in Skyrim are mostly pledged to Molag Bal, a Daedric god who doesn't exactly seem to like Mehrunes Dagon, it's very likely that if he did participate, Harkon and his allies actually fought against the Mythic Dawn and Dagon's forces during the crisis, and simply took the flag as a trophy of sorts. Taking trophies wouldn't be entirely foreign to Harkon, as in his room you can even find some wolf pelt, which was likely taken from a defeated werewolf. Of course, many players also think the flag's presence in Harkon's room could have simply been a mistake by Bethesda, but I like to think there's more of a story here. For a third spot, the Giants of Skyrim are very strange beings, with mysterious pasts. According to various in-game books, the Giants were at one point far more intelligent and better organized than they are by the time the Elder Scrolls V takes place. However, unfortunately, or fortunately depending on which side you are, with the arrival of Ysgramor and his companions in the Merethic era, following a brutal war, the Giants were driven into the Velothi Mountains, a mountain range that defines the border between Skyrim and Morrowind. When the Giants did finally return from their hiding many years later, they were considerably less intelligent and uniform, and adopted the behavior we know them for today. Bethesda never made clear what caused such a dramatic shift in the Giants' intellect. However, some theorize that the Dwemer may have had something to do with it. This is due to an obvious parallel. You see, around the same time the Giants were being chased out of Skyrim by Ysgramor, another race of natives, known as the Snow Elves, was experiencing the exact same problem. I guess one absolute conquest wasn't enough for Ysgramor. After losing battle after battle to their human conquerors, the Snow Elves begged the Dwemer to take them into their underground cities. And surprisingly, the dwarves agreed, under some conditions. They demanded that the Snow Elves consume a plant that would cause them to lose their eyesight. Not wanting to be murdered to death, the elves mostly accepted the offer, and as a result of their blindness and generations of life underground, slowly began to morph into what we now call the Falmer. Many players suspect a similar agreement was forged between the Giants and Dwemer, though possibly with different conditions. Perhaps the Dwemer granted asylum to the Giants in exchange for compromising their intelligence. There's a very good amount of evidence that backs this proposal. For one, we're well aware that the dwarves settled the Velothi Mountains, and were present while the Giants were in hiding there. Furthermore, it's clear the two peoples had some form of communication and knowledge of each other's existence. In The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, Hasfat Antibolus, an Imperial Drillmaster, states that the reason the Dwemer are so often called dwarves is actually because that's what the Giants referred to them as. And what really ties this theory together is the fact that in Blackreach, a large ancient dwarven city underneath Skyrim, the player can actually find a giant wandering around alongside legions of Fulmer and Dwemer contraptions. As you know if you visited, there's no way into Blackreach without undergoing a series of puzzles or obtaining the necessary keys. So it's possible that this beast may be the descendant of some of the giants who agreed to dwarven servitude. It's also not entirely unbased to assume that the giants may just have really long lifespans. And this dude had simply been chilling in there for thousands of years. The proposed theory of some sort of agreement between the giants and dwarves could also explain other strange giant-related mysteries, such as why there doesn't seem to be any females running about, or their highly advanced space clubs. Coming in at number 4, we have a far less serious and significant speculation, but still a theory nonetheless, I suppose. Alvar's a blacksmith living in Riverwood. You meet him shortly after your escape from Helgen, and at first he seems to be a very tame guy. However, further inspection just might be implying otherwise. He can enter dialogue with his wife Sigrid, who may criticize him for, quote, staying out all night in the tavern for too long. Furthermore, Alvar also owns one of the very few copies of the book, A Gentleman's Guide to Whiterun, which sits on his desk. A Gentleman's Guide to Whiterun is a book penned by Mikael the Bard, you know, the same annoying guy in The Bannered Mare, who's known for his misogynistic attitude, which is definitely carried over into his writings. Most damning of all, however, regarding Alvar's behavior, is next to his bed, sitting in a basket, are 2 potions of vigor. Make of that information whatever you will. And finally, last on our list, is a long one. Do you remember the Grey Fox from The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion? Well, he might still be around. For those unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, historically, up until the events of The Elder Scrolls IV, the title given to the leader of the Thieves Guild was the Grey Fox. Alongside this title, the leader would also be given the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, a cowl that was stolen from the Daedric goddess of night herself, with a plethora of magical abilities that enhance a thief's skills. Well, as you might imagine, Nocturnal wasn't exactly pleased to have her property stolen, so in response, she decided to put a curse on the cowl that causes its wearer to be, quote, erased from history, and wiped from the memories of those who knew them. Keep what I just said in mind. Erased from history is a verbatim quote from the Grey Fox in Oblivion, by the way. Just don't forget that. While being erased from memory may sound like a huge advantage for the leader of the Thieves Guild, it was actually a bit of a pain in the ass for those who wore the cowl. And one of the main objectives in the Elder Scrolls IV's Thieves Guild questline was helping the current Grey Fox lift that curse. Ultimately, the 2 of you do succeed, and the old Grey Fox decides to return to his old life, giving the player the now curseless cowl and declaring you the new leader of the guild, effectively making the player character the next Grey Fox. Now, after the Oblivion protagonist assumes this role, we don't really know what happens with the Grey Cowl, or the title of the Grey Fox afterward, as we're not sure if the hero of Kvatch decided to pass it down, or simply held onto it forever. By the time Skyrim takes place, the idea of a Grey Fox has largely been abandoned by the guild, and instead, Riften's Thieves Guild follows Mercer Frey, and well, we all know how that works out. So what happened to the title of the Grey Fox, and more importantly, the Cowl of Nocturnal? Surely the hero of Kvatch didn't just lose it. Well, one thief in Riften's Thieves Guild Cistern may in fact hold a key to that answer. Rune is an Imperial thief, who when spoken to, will reveal that he has no memory of his biological parents, claiming that he was simply found among a shipwreck as a young boy by a fisherman, and remembers nothing before that event. He tells you that he's dedicated his life searching for answers, but has thus far come up empty-handed. Unfortunately, we're never given the chance to help Rune out in his search. He's a bit of a dead end. Some players speculate that he was supposed to be a part of a quest cut by Bethesda, but we'll never know that part for sure. But wait, there is more. Nearby where Rune stands is a letter titled No Word Yet, and it's written by a private detective hired by Rune to help him in his quest. It reads, quote, Rune, I've used every source at my disposal, and I still can't find a trace of your parents. Whoever they are, they've completely erased themselves from history. Let me repeat that. Erased themselves from history. This is quite a feat, considering the quality of my sources. If I come up with anything else, I'll be certain to contact you. Athel Newberry. End quote. Did that phrase, "they've completely erased themselves from history," sound familiar? Many, myself included, suspect that one of Rune's parents was able to acquire Nocturnal's Grey Cowl, and may have suffered the disappearing effects it's known for. The fact that a private detective that seems to be very skilled is unable to come up with anything at all only adds substance to the idea that something magical is at play here. Now, admittingly, there are some flaws in this theory. Mainly the fact that the Cowl's curse was lifted in Oblivion. However, the verbatim repeating of that one phrase leaves me to believe this is more than just a coincidence. Bum bum bum. And there you have it, 5 theories so crazy they may be true in The Elder Scrolls V. Which of these left the biggest impact on you? And what are your own wacky explanations behind some of what goes on in this frozen world? Leave a comment down below. I'm going to try to have a news-like discussion out sometime tomorrow, the day after this video goes up, but no promises. We'll see how fast I'm able to work. Anyway, as always, like ratings are very much appreciated, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.